warning for tomorrow. Is that that health service? That
yeah, that's right.
Sunday Catholics. It's going to be great tomorrow.
Right.
Let's go for some.
Yep. You guys right? Yep. I'm introducing you first. Thanks very much, everyone. Everyone right to go?
Yep.
Thanks for joining us here at Mars Stadium in beautiful Ballarat. It's great to be back in Ballarat again, one of the great regional cities, not just of our state but of our nation. I'm joined by a number of colleagues, and most particularly Dame Louise Martin as the head of the Commonwealth Games Federation, Ben Houston from the Commonwealth Games Australia, Martin Pakula, Marianne Thomas and Michaela Settle. This is a very important day for our state, particularly for regional Victoria. As you know, we've been in discussions and exclusive negotiations with Commonwealth Games authorities with a view to very big news for our state. So without further ado, the announcement's not for me to make, it's for Dame Louise. In anticipation, can I thank her and all of her team for the deep engagement, the strong partnership that we have, and now if I can throw to Dame Louise to make a very significant announcement for our state.
Thank you very much, Premier, and please excuse my voice. Hopefully it will last. I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you at this special event held on the lands of the Wadawurrung people. I would like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. As President of the Commonwealth Games Federation, I'm absolutely delighted to announce that the 2026 Commonwealth Games has been awarded to Victoria. Well done. That was a secret that was supposed to have been kept. But anyway, congratulations to you all. This is a special moment for Commonwealth Games and our inspirational athletes, who I know will be so excited at the prospect of competing in Victoria in 26. We are passionately committed to creating a lasting legacy for Victorians. Young people across the state will see the Commonwealth's best athletes competing right on their doorstep, which will create inspiring moments that will last them a lifetime. Local communities will benefit from brand new initiatives and legacy projects like houses for the athletes' villages. Local businesses will benefit from tenders and contracts. 16 sports have been put forward for the Games, and unsurprisingly, these sports are the ones that Team Australia are pretty good at. Yeah? Further sports will be added later this year. In addition to sport, there are incredibly exciting plans to support trade and business, showcase your arts and culture, and of course respect and celebrate the traditional owners of those lands. This has been a real team effort to reach this historic moment. And on behalf of the Federation, I would like to pay tribute to Premier Andrews and Minister Pakula, whose ambitions for this event and this state are second to none. Visit Victoria have driven this process from the outset, and I must thank Brendan McClements and his team for their efforts too. We would not be here today without the commitment of Commonwealth Games Australia President Ben Houston and CEO Craig Phillips. You two have helped the Games to return to Australia for what will be the 6th time, and I know that this will be a proud moment for Commonwealth sport across the country, and you two specifically. In Victoria, we believe we have found the perfect partner for the next stage of our journey. Congratulations once again on being awarded the 2026 Commonwealth Games. But my message to every Victorian is get involved and be part of a Commonwealth Games like no other. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dame Louise. That is fantastic news for every Victorian, for our state. These will be a Commonwealth Games like no other. We promised that we wouldn't be doing a rerun of 2006, as successful as that was. The opening ceremony will be in Melbourne, and the rest of the program, all the events, will be conducted in regional Victoria. This is a Games like no other. It'll be the greatest spotlight, the greatest showcase of all that we have to offer in not just sport, but in tourism, in food and wine, in experiences, in just quality across regional Victoria. It'll be the greatest showcase of all that we offer across regional Victoria that we've perhaps ever seen. That's incredibly important, and we are delighted to have been successful and have won Victoria 2026. This is also about creating jobs, nearly 4,000 jobs during the Commonwealth Games, some 3,000 enduring jobs thereafter, legacy benefits that will be so important, upgraded stadia, upgraded facilities and infrastructure, and of course housing. There'll be, and Martin can speak in a little bit more detail to some of the elements of the way this will be set up and organised, but essentially opening ceremony at the MCG, closing ceremony, we haven't yet determined where that will be. That'll be announced in due course. All the events, those 16 sports and others that will be added in between now and the end of the year, all of those events will be conducted in regional Victoria. 4 hubs, Ballarat of course, Bendigo, Geelong and Gippsland. There will be sports in each of those 4 hubs. There will be athletes' villages in each of those 4 hubs. There will be some satellite hubs as well, other regional communities, and of course the cultural program, the Queen's Baton Relay, the whole non-competition part of it, which will be very significant. That will also move throughout all of regional Victoria. So this is a great vote of confidence in regional Victoria. It's a showcase of all that we do so well. It's about jobs. It's about setting our state up for the future. We know that when regional Victoria is doing well, Victoria is doing well. This is very exciting. A Games like no other. Exactly what we promised, and we're delighted to say that the partnership between our government, the Commonwealth Games Federation, is very strong. We thank Dame Louise, we thank Visit Victoria, we thank Ben and his team. This is a very strong partnership and a proud day, and we'll have much more to say about cost. That'll all be brought to book in the budget coming up in just a few weeks' time, and we'll have many announcements to make in relation to upgrades and improvements as we take those next steps to fill in all the details in what's going to be such a massive event for regional Victoria, but also for our state as a whole. Might be best now if I perhaps hand over to Martin just to make a few comments, and then I think we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Dame Louise. It was a great privilege for Governor Desault, myself, Ben Houston and Craig Phillips to go to Birmingham last month to present our vision for the regional Commonwealth Games to the board of the Federation. And we were put through our paces. The Federation board wanted to know about that vision, about whether we could deliver, about what sports we'd want to include and how that relates to those parts of the Federation and their own interests and the sports in which they're strong. And the level of engagement from the Federation board was outstanding. We were so impressed by the questions that were asked and by the level of interest in this unique approach that we are putting forward for the running of a Commonwealth Games. And I think I can say without fear of contradiction that this really does deliver to the Federation an opportunity for a new model in how the Commonwealth Games can be delivered in the future. Less city-centric, more devolved, more involving of communities, and it's something that we are very excited about. So as the Premier indicated, 4 main hubs, Ballarat, Bendigo, Geelong and Gippsland, 4 separate villages, a range of infrastructure improvements, huge housing contribution, and we know what an issue that is in regional Victoria, infrastructure upgrades for sporting facilities, a cultural program, the involvement of our First Peoples, 7,500 jobs, both leading up to, during and after the Games, and something like 6,800 athletes, officials and others to be housed in those villages. An opening ceremony at the MCG, Melbourne as a jumping off point for our athletes, for our officials and for those visitors, and then spreading out and delivering those riches and those benefits throughout regional Victoria. I thought I'd just take a moment to take you through which sports will be played in which venues. So we're announcing today that aquatics, that's swimming, diving and paraswimming in Geelong, athletics and para-athletics here at Ballarat, badminton in Gippsland, beach volleyball in Geelong, boxing here in Ballarat, T20 cricket in Geelong, Gippsland, Ballarat, Bendigo, cycling from Gippsland to Bendigo, gymnastics at Geelong, hockey at Geelong, lawn bowls and para-lawn bowls at Bendigo, netball at Bendigo, rugby sevens in Gippsland, squash in Bendigo, table tennis and para-table tennis in Geelong, triathlon and para-triathlon in Geelong, and weightlifting and para-powerlifting in Bendigo. And as Dame Louise and the Premier both indicated, we will be through the course of 2022 looking to add additional sports, additional disciplines, which may well involve additional locations as well. So it's a very exciting opportunity for Victoria, for those regional centres that are going to be the direct beneficiaries and the direct hosts, but also all of the other parts of regional Victoria which will be involved in the lead up, in training camps, in the Queen's Baton Relay, and indeed potentially through additional sports as well. And we are very, very pleased and proud to have been able to partner with Commonwealth Games Australia and with the Commonwealth Games Federation on getting this far, and now the hard work begins. And I've assured Dame Louise, and I assure you all today, that hard work begins immediately, and we will put on a brilliant Games in 2026. I'll now hand over to Ben Houston to say a few words, and I think then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Martin. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we gather today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Dame Louise, thank you. Thank you to the Commonwealth Games Federation Board for awarding the 2026 Commonwealth Games to Victoria. I'm very proud that Commonwealth Games Australia will be partnering with the Victorian Government to bring the Games home to Australia in 2026. Australia has hosted the Commonwealth Games on 5 occasions, but it's been the new strategic roadmap launched by Commonwealth Games Federation which has allowed the Victorian Government to propose what is an inspiring new plan, a new vision, a new concept for the Games. And as the Premier said, it's coming back to here and to regional Victoria. I want to thank the Premier Dan Andrews and also Minister Martin Pakula for their vision. I also want to thank Simon Feimaster and the Victorian Government team, together with CGA CEO Craig Phillips, for all of the work that they've done to secure the bid that's being announced today. Our joint submission centred on the regionally focused games. It will be a different Games to any Games that have been provided and supported and delivered to date. And the vision is around ensuring that we're putting back into the regional communities in Victoria and providing them with the access to tourism, to trade, to jobs, and all of the infrastructure required around both standing up the Games but a sports legacy benefit that will live beyond the Games. Today marks 107 days until the start of the Birmingham 2022 Games, and Australia will compete in all 21 sports and will field a team of around 425 athletes. And I know that all of the athletes competing in Birmingham will be inspired by today's announcement, and I hope that the next generation of Australian champions will be encouraged by the announcement today. Today's announcement also means that Australia will host the 3 biggest multi-sport events in the world over the next 10 years. And I think it will create a green and gold runway for Australia and the best opportunity that we have to develop a new long-term vision for sport in this country. Commonwealth Games looks forward to working with the Victorian Government and Commonwealth Games Federation to deliver what I know will be an exceptional regional Games in 2026. Thank you.
So just to put all that another way, it's estimated that this will be a $3 billion boost to the Victorian economy. So many other benefits that are less tangible but no less important. And if you look at the Gold Coast experience, where they had estimated a certain economic benefit, they eclipsed that by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So we're very, very confident, very confident that this will deliver jobs, it'll deliver better facilities, better housing, and it'll be a showcase to the world of everything that's so special about the most beautiful part of regional Australia, which is of course regional Victoria. We're happy to take any questions you have.
Can you give us a hint about which stadiums or facilities are looking at upgrades?
This one here will have to be upgraded. The exact detail, which is of course to say that'll just be another stage of our government's vision for this wonderful complex. I remember coming here, well, it must be almost a decade ago now, and talking about how we wanted to bring AFL football to Ballarat, but that meant that we had to upgrade the then Eureka Stadium. We have, but we'll need to take some further steps here. The exact details of that we'll have to work through with local community clubs who use this facility. There'll be lots of these announcements to be made, but it's fair to say that there'll be upgrades to facilities in each of those 4 hubs. And indeed, as we have more and more to say about satellite hubs, there may need to be further enhancements there too. The good thing about it is, just like our commitment, 7, 8, 9 years ago to upgrade this particular facility, we delivered it. And it means this is a better facility, not just for Ballarat, but for regional Victoria. All of these improvements along the way, similarly, the legacy benefits are not just for sport, but for music, for all sorts of different major events, which is all about jobs. They'll be long-lasting. These are also very important jobs in terms of construction. So lots of people who finish up in work and having a really secure pipeline of work, large and small businesses, many of which will be local to regional Victoria. There's every good reason, whether it's in sporting infrastructure, civic infrastructure, schools, roads, hospitals, all the stuff we do. The projects are important, but the jobs and the skills attainment along the way as we deliver them, that's a really important part of it too.
Like 2006, where the athletes stay, will that become social housing? Is that the vision for each?
No, that's not necessarily settled yet, Mark, but what we know is that across regional Victoria, there's real pressure in terms of the amount of housing units that are available for rental. The pressure in the rental market is huge. Pressure in the property market more broadly is really significant. So the more housing stock that we can get into regional Victoria, the better, because it is at the moment, I think, pretty clear that pressure in the housing market is holding back some regional industries from growing and reaching the full potential that we want them to reach. So it's not yet determined exactly where that will go, but any additional housing takes pressure off, because that means there's more options for others, and that'll mean more options for economic growth, for employment, for business formation, for all the success. To put it simply, it's all about success. It's all about setting regional Victorian families and businesses up for an even brighter future.
Will the cost of preparing for these games be less than the return expected?
No, absolutely not. This will be an absolute net positive. It's not going to cost $3 billion, no. There'll be a $3 billion, it'll cost a substantial amount, let's not be in any doubt about that, but I don't see it as a cost. I see it as a profound investment in showcasing to the world the best part of regional Australia, the most beautiful part of regional Australia, and that is of course regional Victoria. We've got so much to sell, so much to spruik, so much to share with the world, and this is a fantastic platform to do that. The legacy benefits as well, as I said, whether it's in stadia, in housing, in skills and jobs, in businesses that will come up out of this. It is all good news. It's a fantastic day, an absolutely fantastic day, and we are very excited and really positive about what this means. We said that we would do our best to secure this, we have, and what's more, we're not just doing a rerun. It's not going to be the same as it's ever been. The notion of having the opening ceremony at the G, that makes sense, biggest and best stadium anywhere in the country and one of the very best in the world. And then of course from that opening point, moving out throughout the regions, and all of these sports, 16 plus some others that we'll add in due course, and we'll make announcements about that before the end of the year. All of those events will be held in regional Victoria. That's just absolutely fantastic.
Well, the natural beauty of Victoria, for instance, the Great Ocean Road,
yes.
Would that be included?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason why Mildura and the Wimmera missed out, or are they going to be included later?
Well, satellite, as I said before, whether it's in Shepparton or whether it's Mildura, there'll be further announcements that'll be made about satellite activity, about other ways in which we can make sure secure the entirety of regional Victoria as part of this. So it's pre-competition training, the kind of community and cultural part of this, which is in many respects, is just as important from a showcase point of view as the actual sporting part of it. So we will have more announcements to be made. This is, as we said, when we first said to you that we had signed an exclusive negotiation, we said that there were some things we could talk about, some things we didn't have answers to. We've now won the bid. There are still some things we can talk about, others that will need to be developed and settled in the weeks and months to come. But every part of regional Victoria will share in this, and every part of regional Victoria will benefit from it.
But the marathon is always good to showcase wherever you are. So would the marathon, for instance, take place along the Great Ocean Road?
Oh, look, I'm not here to stipulate the exact format and things of that nature, but just you think about it, you know, whether it be road cycling or other events, that backdrop beamed out to the world, like it's just postcard stuff. It's amazing. It's come and visit, come and be part of the most beautiful part of regional Australia, right in the centre of regional Victoria. This is just fantastic. It's momentum, it's investment, it's jobs, it's that sense of success. It's big news for regional Victoria.
Why do you think there weren't any other bidders?
Well, I'm not displeased about that, frankly. You know, it wasn't easy. It's never easy to secure and to sell a concept that's completely unique. But we've been able to do that, and we're very grateful to Commonwealth Games authorities for seeing the potential of this. It is different. I'm sure from their point of view it's a bit riskier than just running it in the middle of a large city. But to do this and to do it well, and we will, there's an opportunity here, an opportunity like no other. And it's a Commonwealth Games. It's not just about one part of the state, it's a Commonwealth Games right throughout regional Victoria. And given the upgraded transport links that have been such a big priority for us over the 7 years that we've been in power, upgrading facilities like this, so we're adding to an agenda rather than starting from scratch, and the compact nature of our state, you're going to see many hundreds of thousands of Victorians from Melbourne who will travel and be part of these games, regional communities who will move amongst each other and have those hubs that we've spoken about, and of course many visitors from other parts of the country and other parts of the world. So we are very pleased to have been able to secure this, but to do it in a uniquely Victorian way, where legacy benefits will be profound and economic benefit will be obvious. This is all about jobs, tourism, pride, of course, but setting us up for the future.
So you are starting from scratch on some infrastructure, sporting infrastructure stuff, aren't you? Like there's no indoor velodrome in regional Victoria. Swimming in Geelong, are you going to go permanent or build temporary infrastructure?
Well, we'll have more to say about all sorts of different infrastructure that we'll need to build, but I wouldn't necessarily concede the point about starting from scratch. There might be some particular facilities that we have to do a lot more work at. But I think we start with a pretty good base, having invested, when it comes to infrastructure, more than $30 billion in regional Victoria over the last 7 years. We do start in a strong position, but there'll be extra things we have to do in every city, every community, every sport, every facility is different. You know, I like investing money in regional Victoria. We've done a lot of it because it's about setting up regional Victoria for the future. So again, these are not costs, they'll be profound investments, and it'll mean that regional Victoria is stronger and better placed post 2026. That's why you fight hard to win these particular events, and that's why major events have always dominated us. And to Martin and his team to visit Victoria, they've done a fantastic job in securing this, not just a rerun of what we did a while ago, but something that's new and fresh and unique, and something that's going to be absolutely fantastic.
How much money is the Commonwealth chipping in?
Well, the Commonwealth at this stage, no, that's not yet. We're not assuming that there's any contribution from the Commonwealth. We'd always welcome that, but that'll be a matter of having discussions with whomever the federal government is post the 21st of May.
So you're going to have to do a finish the stadium here, aren't we? We're going to get grandstands all around?
Well, no, I'm not here necessarily to. I think I've probably got myself into a bit of trouble earlier on where I said to you, yes, this will be one of the projects that gets upgraded, because it will be, and. Well,
you love infrastructure.
Well, I do. Well, I'll leave it to the architects to determine exactly what it will look like, but it will be bigger, it will be better, and it'll be in many respects the next stage of Labor's vision for Eureka/Mars Stadium.
Can you break down that $3 billion benefit? How much are we expecting in terms of tourism, or is it all construction benefit?
No, that'll be a mixture. I'm happy to try and get you a breakdown if we can do that. We've done a fair bit of modelling on this. That's an estimate, obviously, but the same estimate that was provided at the Gold Coast was absolutely eclipsed by many hundreds of millions. So let's see if I can get you some of that. But it'll be, as we said, there's about 600 jobs we think absolutely in the lead up. There's about 3,900 during and 3,000 after. So if you think about it, it'll be tourism, it'll be putting the event on, as well as those legacy benefits, construction, all of those things. So it will be a mix.
Public transport from, say, Ballarat to Bendigo is a bit lacking at the moment. Is there any kind of early thought into reopening temporarily train lines, potentially one from Ballarat to Geelong?
I wouldn't rule out anything when it comes to trying to make sure and making sure that this is the best Commonwealth Games that's ever been held. There'll be time for us to make further announcements about all sorts of different issues. But I would just say we've upgraded every regional country train line. We don't close country train lines, we upgrade them. We've invested in rolling stock. We've made that rolling stock here. Ballarat itself, those workshops have been reborn and have got a strong future under our government. There are many different ways in which we will upgrade and improve, and that will add to that legacy benefit. It's not just about stadia, as important as that is, but it's also about skills. You think about the people who will, through Free TAFE and through other partnerships that we'll announce over the next 6 months, 12 months, these Commonwealth Games will mean that Victoria 2026, it'll mean that people will get skills, they'll get training, and they'll take those skills with them their entire working life. The legacy benefits are very broad, very, very broad. That's why you bid for these things. That's why you run them and run them well. Transport, infrastructure, that'll be an important part of it too.
What about accommodation for non-competitors and officials? We have a shortfall of accommodation here in Ballarat. Bendigo's the same. Gippsland's got practically nothing and is spread out from Berwick to the border. What about the kind of hotels?
I don't know that Berwick. I don't know that. Well, anyway, we won't have we won't have a debate about where Gippsland starts and ends. What I'd say to you is this: nothing will make it more likely that people will invest in the accommodation, in the housing offering, in the infrastructure that we need across different regional communities than the biggest event that regional communities have ever seen. So this is us playing our part in creating demand, creating that showcase, creating opportunities, and they'll be blasting as well. It's not a bump in of 2 weeks and it's over. There's going to be enormous build-up, lots of economic activity out of that, and really significant legacy benefits. Housing will be part of that. Hotel, motel, all different options. I think that's going to be much more likely that those investments get made. If you think about the sheer number of hotels that are being built in Melbourne at the moment, there are, I think there's 7 or 8 or 9 different projects that are under construction now. I'd advance a theory which I think's spot on. Major events, things like the biggest Grand Prix that we've ever had last weekend, feeds into why those business cases stack up to build hotels, to spend all that sort of money, many hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps even more. Big events in regional Victoria, they back up the same case. So when you've got a lot on, when you have lasting benefits, when you showcase regional Victoria to the world and see the tourism benefits over not 1 year but over decades flow from that, all of a sudden some of these investments, they're needed, they're smart, they stack up and they happen. And if we have to incentivise that, if we have to work with different providers, absolutely we will.
Will the athletes be housed in each city?
Yeah, so there'll be 4 different villages across the 4 different hubs.
There are reports this morning there's a presser at 11:30 with the AFL and reports on Gilbert Lachlan stepping down.
I've had a conversation with Gil, but I'll let him make the announcement and perhaps reflect on his time in a different way if I can. It's not for me to make announcements on his behalf, but I've spoken with him this morning. I just say Gil McLachlan is a great Victorian. He's done an amazing job. Our game is in very good hands, and he should be proud of the contribution that he's made. And I'm deeply grateful to him for the many partnerships that our government has had with him.
Premier and the Sports Minister, would you like to see a woman take over from Gil?
That's a matter for the AFL. That's a matter for the AFL. And I don't pick their team and they don't pick mine, but I think our record when it comes to equality in our state is very well, very clear. Very clear. We've got more than half the cabinet are women, so you get better decisions when you include everybody. That's always been my view, Dennis.
Premier, just on COVID matters,
Sure.
isolation exemptions have now been extended to include airport workers. Can you shed some light on why that change was made?
No, I can't, but the Health Minister and or the Chief Health Officer through a show release, I think later today, might be able to provide you with some further information on that. So I'm happy to chase that up for you.
Well, how do you feel about seeing the scenes at the airport the last 2 days after such a successful Grand Prix?
Oh look, you know, we have had a quite amazing Grand Prix, breaking all records. There's been a lot of different theories advanced about, you know, people getting back into travel patterns and all those sorts of things. I'm not here to add to any of those. When you have a big event, when you have just a massive number of people coming and visiting you, when you haven't had visitors for a long time, well, that does present some challenges. We're all doing our best. And I'll leave it to others to make further announcements about refinements when it comes to those rules. But if you ask me how do I feel about the Grand Prix, yeah, I'm pretty happy that we had the biggest Grand Prix that we've ever had, that anyone's ever had, as this Minister for Sport, Minister for the Grand Prix points out. Let's be absolutely clear about this. We do major events better than anybody, and that is a very exciting event. That together with Spring Racing Carnival, Boxing Day Test, and of course Grand Slam tennis. These are the anchor points. These are the foundations of the biggest and best major events agenda anywhere in our country. You're talking about billions, more than $20+ billion worth of economic activity a year, pushing 250,000 jobs that depend upon the visitor economy, the major events economy. That's 250,000 livelihoods that are pegged against events like the Grand Prix. We're doing well, and Victorians can be very proud.
Do you think, though, we'll be match fit by 2026 to be receiving such a flood of...
Yes, of course we will be. Yes, we will be. More than that. More than that.
Are those rules that are coming later today, is the change in place now to alleviate any pressure on airlines?
I'm not certain. That's why I'm not. Again, as you know, the Parliament's given us a set of rules that are not administered by me. There's a set of powers that are not held by me. They're held by the Health Minister. He needs to act on advice. He gets that advice. He makes those decisions. And I think there'll be clarity to the extent that there needs to be some. There'll be clarity later today through a show release. So if I could answer it, and if it was a matter for me, I would. We want all of our systems to work well. We want everyone to have the best experience possible. But matters of public health rules are not a matter for me.
You mind if I just ask Marty?
Absolutely.
In regards to the Grand Prix, after it being so successful, then seeing what happened at the airport, is that at all embarrassing to us on a national stage, given so many internationals are trying to get back out of the country?
No, well, look, I mean, you've seen almost identical scenes at Sydney Airport last week. I understand that domestically, yesterday might have been the biggest domestic outflow day that Melbourne Airport's had ever. And, you know, we've got a situation where there are a number of workers furloughed, where, you know, travel patterns have been extraordinarily suppressed for the last 2 years. You know, I think somewhat understandably it's taking, I think someone used the term match fit, it's taking a little bit of time for Melbourne Airport. And I'd make the point, Melbourne Airport's, you know, it's under the auspices of the Commonwealth, but it's taking, you know, some time for some of those processes and systems to get back into 100% working order. But look, no one wants to see large queues at the airport or anywhere else, quite frankly. And I've got no doubt that as we come down the other side of the pandemic, as fewer workers are furloughed, as some of those systems start to work more seamlessly again, those issues will alleviate themselves. But if you're asking me, would we rather not see that? Of course we'd rather not see that.
Can I just ask you, with Gil going, if I'm out working, Gil going, what sort of state do you think he's left the game in?
Well, like the Premier, I'm not going to make Gil's announcement for him, so I'm not sure what he's announced so far. Look, I think Gil McLachlan's performance in leading the AFL through the last 2 years of the pandemic has been nothing short of outstanding. You know, there were those times in March 2020 where he and I were on the phone almost every day. As much as this pandemic was incredibly challenging for all of us, numbers for business, for households, for government. For the AFL, the level of complexity was extreme. Gil had to manage government, media, clubs, stadia, players, and his own team, and just did an extraordinary job. I think the AFL has been brilliantly led for 9 years, and he, Andrew Demetrio was a hard act to follow. Gillon McLachlan, if he is making that announcement that you've suggested today, will be an extraordinarily hard act to follow. I think he's been a brilliant leader, and he will do well at whatever he does.
Sorry, Mr. Premier, just back to the game.
Sure. Well, can I just do one COVID thing first? Again, I'll leave it to the Chief Health Officer and the Minister to speak about trends and things, but we do seem to have some stability come to these numbers. And as we've had a conversation, or at least many of us, State Rowds and I have had this conversation for about a week or two now. Once we get past the peak, once we start to see those numbers coming off, we will have options that are not available to us now. That'll be options, as AHPPC made the point last week or the week before, things like household contacts and ISO rules for them, vaccinated economy, QR coding, all sorts of different things will it's our hope, will fall away. But those options are not available to us just yet. They become available once we see the peak and numbers trailing off. I think most people, if they just think about that for a moment, to have less rules while case numbers are going up, that's probably not a smart thing to do. But once they start to come off, which we think will be quite soon, we will have those options available to us, and then those processes that I alluded to before will kick in. Sorry, on the games.
Yeah, on the games. Speaking of options, what are the options for timing of the
March. So it's going to be in March, and further details about exactly when in March will be finalised and reported to you as soon as possible.
Have those conversations begun with the AFL and other sporting organisations?
I believe so, yes, and we're confident that we'll be able to find a good time slot in March, which will fit nicely between a pretty packed calendar.
I was going to say, does that mean the Grand Prix is going to stay in April, or is that going to go back to March?
Well, again, 4 years on the Grand Prix, let's wait and see. We'll have further announcements to make about the Grand Prix and other events in due course. Today's not a day for me to be announcing that. I could announce an extension, but that probably a different day. Any other issues?
Can I get you on something else with the game, please?
Sure.
A lot's been made about Mr. Albanese's forgetting some statistics. I wonder if you think that's a reasonable criticism of somebody hoping to become a leader?
I've known Anthony for a long time. He's passionate, he's hard-working, he's someone who's delivered whenever he's been given an opportunity to do that. And there'll be some people who'll be endlessly negative. They're always negative. I'm not negative when it comes to Anthony and the work that he's done and the track record that he has, and the promises that he's already made, and the many more that I'm sure he'll make over the coming weeks. It'll come as no surprise to you. Everybody in my household, there are three people are voting in my household. We're all voting for a change. Let's wait and see what happens across Victoria and across our country. I think we can do better. I think we absolutely can do better, and we need to do better. And I think Anthony's got a very positive and strong plan: aged care, Medicare, and of course making sure that we try and grow wages across our country as well. Try and deal with so many of those pressures and challenges. But again, I'm not here as a commentator on behalf of the Federal Labor Party. I'm not here to be a commentator on the federal election every day. There matters for you guys. We've got a state to run. Today's all about the Commonwealth Games, Victoria 2026, a fantastic announcement, one that's all about jobs and real success for the future. The Australian community will work out who they want to govern them for the next 3 years.
Will you be campaigning with him when he comes to you?
Oh, look, I'm sure I'll spend a bit of time with him. I'll be doing a few things, just as a matter of just working out diaries and trying to work out, which is a matter for them, what sort of commitments they're making, Dennis. We'll have to wait and see. But I look forward to hopefully joining with Anthony and celebrating some significant commitments that benefit Victoria, that see us closer to getting a fair share, which we have not got over these last few years.
Premier, not to ask you what you might think of the cheap question, but do you know Victoria's unemployment?
I do. We're in regional Victoria. It's 3%. It's 4.2% across the state, just a little bit above the overall number. Our participation rate's at about 67%, I think. I never talk about full employment. I know some people do. I'll always fight for every extra job, every single extra job that we can fight, that we can find. But if you look at if memory serves me correctly, if you look at regional unemployment at 3% now, it was I think it was at about 6.5, 6.6 when you go back to when we came to government. So, and indeed statewide unemployment was 2.5 plus points higher than it is now. So, you know, we're very proud to have bounced back so strongly. Regional Victoria did an amazing job throughout 2 incredibly difficult years. But I don't talk about full employment. I think you've got to keep fighting hard for every single job, and that's why the jobs that will flow from the Commonwealth Games in Victoria in 2026 are just one part of a big plan, a big strategy to be stronger for the pandemic event, to come out of this even stronger than we were. Very good. Excellent. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Brett.